Get the meeting started. Side conversations, can you kind of move into the hallway, please?
Whoop, whoop. Pay attention.
Time to go.
Okay, let's go. Councilor Rudd.
I have item, 9A?
9A, yes.
Which is the police contract. We're gonna have I have a number of questions which I'd like to articulate here, but I also believe we're gonna have an executive session discussion on the subject. But in general, the labor contracts, labor is our biggest expense, police is our biggest department. And with all the labor contracts coming through, each contract has different items. For instance, the police contract has 2% pay increases for 2016 and 2017 that are retroactive, and then it has another component that's longevity increases, another component that's shift differential increases. I'd like to know the financial cost of every item in each of the contracts. So for police, what's the cost of the retro payments? What's the cost moving forward? What's the cost of the longevity payment? What's the cost of the shift differential? What are they going forward? Ideally, I would like some sense of how they affect the pension costs in the future. I realize that's probably more difficult to calculate, but I would like to see a number attached to each item, and that carries over into the other items, like in fire, where they may have different items that are changing. So what exactly is the change? What is the financial value of those changes? And then I suppose in executive session, I would like to understand what the value of different proposals that were on the table and how concessions by different unions compare across. So
I think we'll be discussing that in executive.
We can discuss all of that in executive session.
Thank you. I have item 10, I think it is, and I'll know by Monday. Councilor Thompson.
Okay, Madam President, I have items 11 through 18. My items are ready. I have representatives here from the fire department and the chief of fire and chief of police here to answer any questions.
There are none.
No questions? Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Bay.
Thank you, Madam President. I have item number 19. Mr. Kearney.
Good afternoon, Councilors. Owen Kearney with City Planning. This is an application or an authorization request to apply for funds to enter an agreement with NYSERDA. It is focused on underpass lighting, obviously a separate and distinct project than what we just heard about in the committee meeting, but it's focused on underpass lighting that will be replaced as part of this grant. It's about 10 locations, essentially right around downtown, and these are all locations that are outside the 81 footprint, which we're also looking at, but this is a project that would begin in 2019.
Can I ask you a question on, you said 10 locations around the downtown area, but we have other quarters, like that Geddes Street quarter. Yeah. Are you planning on doing anything with that, or the bridge under Franklin Square, the lighting under there? Do you plan to touch any of that?
I don't know the plans for areas outside the footprint. Most of these, and I can send you a list of the locations. About 3/4 of them are railroad bridges. A couple of them are 690 bridges just north of downtown. Are you aware of any plans for sort of outside the immediate downtown area, Lonnie?
Inside the 81 footprint, obviously, short term.
We're approaching the underpass lighting in two ways. The ones, there's 285 fixtures inside the footprint of 81 that are going to be short lifespan depending on which way they go, whether they go community grid or they go back to the viaduct. They'll be replaced. So we have a short-term plan to replace those because only about 50 of those are functioning currently. So that's going to start now, but it's separate from this NYSERDA grant. The NYSERDA grant are for the bridge abutment, underpass lighting along Taylor Street, State Street, West Fayette, Gaddis, all the ones, in order to qualify for this grant, it has to be up for at least 4 years, payback within 20, and all of these will be around and won't be affected by the 81 footprint. That's why they're separated 2 different ways.
Any further questions? All right, I'll call that item ready.
Thank you. Councilor Rudd.
Item 20, we'll discuss in executive session. Does anybody have any questions for now? 21, Commissioner Clifford, or Commissioner Del Vecchio, would you come up and introduce and describe?
Dave Del Vecchio, Commissioner of Finance. Councilors, item 21. On an annual basis, we borrow money for both the city and the school district. This particular item is to borrow in revenue anticipation, though, not to exceed $35 million. School district will pay back using state aid. And the purpose of this is short-term money. We do this on an annual basis to cover us through the winter to pay bills. It's standard practice, and I'll be here in a few months, a similar request ordinance for the city. And Suzanne Slack from the school district is here if you have any questions. There should be a worksheet in your packet that explains the cash flow, and that in late October they will run out of cash. Okay.
I would still like to understand exactly what the fees are that we pay when we do it, but that's fine otherwise.
Well, on the worksheet?
Yes. The worksheet, does it show what we, I understand it shows where we have the deficit and approximately why the school district needs 35 million, but then
Right.
how much do we pay in fees?
Well, what will happen is, upon approval, when if the council approves this, my office will solicit bids from banks and various underwriters. So we don't know what interest rate we're paying. That will happen after the council approves this.
Okay.
I can follow up with you on those rates, yes.
Thank you. I think 21's ready. 22.
22 is mine, yes. Just some background. In the 1980s, the Federal Housing Urban Development, federal government provided this Urban Development Action Grant to the city of Syracuse. It's for developing economic development. It was, the grant money was provided to the city. The city then loaned it to the Economic Development Corporation to facilitate these loans. So what we're asking today is really an accounting entry to remove this item. The Economic Development Corporation has a similar item on its books, and we're just basically asking for an accounting entry, permission to remove on the city's books the receivable from 3.8 million to 0. And on their books, they will not, the Economic Development Corporation will no longer have any liability to the city for that money.
So they paid the money back?
Oh, they will pay nothing back on this. That's correct.
You said loan.
Loan? Well, it was structured as a loan by the city. That's why. Now, I want to follow up with that. There's no impact to the city because many years ago, the city created an allowance. So we've effectively written, this has been written off years ago. This request is to remove the accounting records, remove the 2 accounts that are involved. So years ago, the city created an accounts receivable from Setco, and they created a corresponding allowance, which is basically, it was written off. So the effect on the financial statement has been 0 for many years. So there's no value to the particular asset. But the auditors will not allow me to just, eliminate accounts without permission of the council. And the Economic Development Board would need to take similar action. I think they're waiting for your decision.
I would just add that when I talked about this item before, I saw a list of properties and the loans that were
Right, I'll defer to
I don't know if that
Laura.
can be shared with the other council members so they can know it, or if it's possible to have it be a matter of public record.
Sure, absolutely.
But it's not in the agenda now, so I think.
Okay,
that
yeah,
would-
we can absolutely send that around. It's a total of 12 projects ranging from 1981 to 1987.
Right.
Real gems. North Civilian Economic Development. But,
Thank you.
thank you.
So after sharing that, I think this is probably ready. 23, who?
Good afternoon, councilors. I'm Dave Perwack, Director of IT. Asking for the authorization to proceed with a one-year extension with Naughton Associates. They are the vendor that supports us with our PC deployment and our server infrastructure. 3-year contract was awarded 3 years ago, and this is the first one-year extension we're asking for.
So you're happy with this?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. 24, we'll discuss an executive session. 25 just seems like.
Good afternoon, councilors. Item 25 has some corrections to the roll. 117 Galan Avenue was a senior citizen exemption that had been denied in error, so we're correcting the roll to put that back on. The property at 1901 Glenwood Avenue is the Bellevue Country Club. We came before the council before. The county has been correcting the sewer use charge. This is really a county charge, but it's billed through the city, so we're correcting that per the county's instructions. And the last item, 430 South Salina Street, a parcel was created back probably in the 1970s to account for the pedestrian bridge over Salina Street between then Day Brothers and Sibley's. That bridge apparently was sold when we sold the garage and the land to the developers of the Sibley site, and basically became part of that parcel and shouldn't be on the roll. That's why we're deleting it. Any questions?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Green.
Thank you. I have items 26 through 53. 26 is being held. 27 through 31 has to do with the topic of our last committee meeting. I don't know if we have any further questions on that. Okay. Let's do item 32.
Good afternoon, Councilors. Owen Kearney with City Planning. Both 32 and 33 are authorization and bond ordinance for improvements proposed and designed for Fayette Firefighters Park, just right here at the intersection of Townsend and East Genesee Street, largely focused on lighting the existing monuments in the park, refreshing the stone dust trails in the park, and making some minor improvements to the existing fence around the park. These are remaining dollars from the Connective Corridor project that SU will be funding the work in its entirety, and we're scheduled to begin this work with obviously this authorization next month.
It'll be completed by the end of the summer?
We imagine by October, end of October, early November, so this season.
Is there monies left in the Connective Corridor project?
Very little. It's dollars like this that are used for public improvements, and this is essentially the remaining monies that are available. So we're putting them to use, again, along the Connective Corridor, making these public improvements in the park.
Okay, so if there were a suggestion for a public improvement in, say, Foreman Park, would that still, would there?
Two things. One, I don't think there's any funding available really outside of this, and the other element is the funding is the deadline to use it is essentially this year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, councilors. I'm Mary Robison, city engineer. Items 34 through 36 are related to a grant that we received from Onondaga County for some infrastructure improvements within the Meadowbrook area. So 34 is a bond ordinance for $250,000. 35 is a project authorization for the proposed project, which is sanitary sewer lining on Hurlburt Road, Bradford Parkway, and Standish Drive. And 36 is an intermunicipal agreement with Onondaga County for reimbursement of the $250,000. So there's a 0% local share.
Great. Could you explain a little bit exactly what will be done?
We'll be lining the sewers, so it won't be a street cut. When you line the sewer, you access the sewer via the manhole. So there might be some lane closures during the actual construction, but it's a pretty fast process.
And I guess I was just kind of, is this, how to say it, the longevity of this moving forward? Like, how this improvement to the sewer linings, are we seeing a need for it, and will the improvement
yeah, this is
that for a few years?
Technique that's a lot more cost effective and has a decent service life with regard to replacing the sewer versus replacing the sewer, which is a lot more expensive, basically, and takes a lot longer. So this extends
the life, and
yes,
kind of
and you can do this in sewers as long as they've maintained their shape. So it addresses removing the cracks which water infiltrates through, and we're trying to remove the infiltration in our sewers in Meadowbrook area.
Great.
Which kind of relates to my next items.
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to go to 37 and 38?
37 and 38 is application and agreement. Really, the county is applying for this grant. It's an intermunicipal grant, and it's to help eliminate infiltration of water within our sewer system, because the county's having a problem with overflows in the Meadowbrook limestone sewer plant, and we are all the sewers in Meadowbrook are tributary to this sewer plant. So they're applying for an part of the intermunicipal grant program. So as part of that, we are a partner, but they are the lead agent. And then 38 is an intermunicipal agreement with the county. It's not defined as to the cost share or the amount of the grant, but it's basically a broad intermunicipal agreement, which is are agreeing to participate in the program if we get the grant. And it's required for the grant because it's an intermunicipal grant.
So do we have a ballpark sense of how much of this is city facilities or city assets, I guess, that would be impacted by the grant?
I know they're working on the grant application. I don't have the details of how much they're putting in for the city. I know our share, they told us preliminarily, our share of the problem was roughly almost 50%, because there's other municipalities involved also, everybody that's tributary to the Meadowbrook limestone sewer plant.
How many municipalities are involved, Mary?
4.
Hello, I'm Corey Driscoll Dunham. I'm Director of Operations. I believe there's 5 municipalities total, including the county. I believe the Meadowbrook limestone is served by, Onondaga County is involved in the grant application. Syracuse, DeWitt, Fayetteville, and I think Pompey is also served by the Meadowbrook limestone, but we can get more information specific to that wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, but would the money be used to upgrade the actual treatment plant itself? Is that what the bulk of the funds would be for?
Again, I don't know the details of what they're putting in the grant, but I know it's going to involve improvements to the sewer system. It may also involve improvements to their plant. I don't know.
And who's, the grant is with this?
The county.
The county. The county's the lead applicant. And I think
Right. I mean, who is the county applying to, with the state or federal?
New York State EFC.
State EFC.
But it's called the Intermunicipal Grant Program, I believe.
And how much of the project would the grant cover, theoretically?
Up to 40%.
40% is the grant fund, so 60% would be the local share.
Okay, and I know this one has a timeline. I spoke to Director.
I believe the application deadline is September 7th.
September 7th, right? So
that's why this is.
It was my understanding, though, that if we cannot, if the price tag is too high or if the share isn't agreeable to the city, we just won't follow through on the execution of the grant. Is that correct?
Right, we wouldn't execute the subsequent IMA. We definitely need a subsequent IMA if we get the grant to define the amount of the grant and the sharing, the local share.
Does that make sense?
We need an additional IMA.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Item 39.
Good afternoon, councilors. Chairman Robinson, Commissioner of Public Works. 39, 40, and 41 are all agreements for the school district, the county, and housing to continue our fuel service, continue their fuel service, sorry. Any questions? And 43 is an agreement with Republic.
42.
42, sorry, 42. Thank you, President Hudson. 42 is an agreement to maintain our, for Republic to maintain our garages on Armory. What else? Sorry. Washington Street Garage and Madison Irvin.
Yeah, I have a question.
Right.
I understand this is a one-year extension of an existing contract, but
Yep.
what brought about the increased costs of living wage payments retroactive to 2014?
Excuse me?
I can answer that, Counselor. This original legislation was passed when the living wage was added to the city law, so they had to go back and adjust the wages paid out in the original ordinance. It doesn't have to be adjusted now, I don't believe.
It's already been paid?
No, it's been adjusted to that rate. We pay the rate of the parking company pays their employees. Now they pay the, you know.
I gotcha.
Right, but in October, retroactive to October 2014, weren't they being paid a living wage at that
I think
time?
Mary can explain it further, the rate. When did we start paying the living wage rate?
Catherine Karnick, Assistant Corporation Counsel. The contract, when it was bid, had the living wage requirement in it, and it required that when the living wage increased, that the amount increased as well. When the contract, when it was awarded, it didn't include the increase, so it was amended to reflect the new amount. The amounts you have in there are the current amounts that they're paying their employees, and it has a line in there that automatically allows for payments for any increases in living wage. So it was in the RFP when they applied for management, to private management services. They're not amending it again. They had to amend it to accurately reflect that they were getting it. So basically the living wage went up during the initial period of the contract, and the amount didn't cover it, so they couldn't pay it. So we had to come back to you to get the correct amount so that they could get properly paid.
So will there be a retro payment to echo?
The reason this is like this is in order to show you what we're amending, we show you the original short title. So this is the title from years ago. So it's already been remedied, but we're amending it just to extend the agreement for 1 year. It's not effective.
So there's not a big retro payment at all?
No, all that was just to correct the payment, so they got paid the proper amount.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. 43, Commissioner.
Lonnie, you want to talk about this? 43.
Okay. I'm just seeing this for the first time for me. This is to show what we're doing with NYPA, what we've done. What's that? Yes, for LED lighting. These locations are,
Excuse me, what happened is you substituted a new list as a schedule in place of the list that was originally adopted in 2017. So you're promoting a new list of.
oh, then, okay, now I'm up to speed. We're moving the funding because it was left over to apply it to new programs. That's what it is. And it goes hand in hand with the LED upgrades. There's just the last few locations, and this is just moving the leftover funds from one account to include the other locations. I thought Rebecca was doing it. That's all.
Good. Okay. 44 and 45.
Item 44 and 45 is related to the Evans Street Bridge over Onondaga Creek. We had unused design funds in the amount of $106,778, and we want to reallocate that from the design phase to the construction and construction inspection phase. So there's no net increase in the project amount. It's just reallocation of funds so that we can amend our agreement with the state. And this project should be starting this fall and be finished in the spring.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those are all my items.
Thank you. Councilor Carney.
Thank you, Madam President. I've got items 46 through 53.
Yeah, 46. Good afternoon, Julie Lefebvre, Commissioner Parks and Recreation. Item number 46 is to amend an ordinance so that we can allow for a third-party vendor, which would be for DocuPet. Item number 47 is to accept in-kind donation for a park blitz that's happening at Elmwood Park from home headquarters in September. They are going to place signage in the park with approval from us, as well as some other items in the park that will ultimately improve the park.
Okay. Have they submitted any of the signs yet? I mean, what
the sign design has not been submitted yet, but they are aware that it has to get approved by us before they go forward with actually ordering it.
Okay. What kind of signs are they going to be?
A historical sign.
Okay. Okay.
And a map.
And a map.
Okay.
Any other questions on that item? Number 48 is an agreement for us to conduct a special audit. This is the final step required in order for us to close out the grant for the fire barn.
Okay.
Item number 49 is an agreement with American Red Cross. We collect all of the payments from our lifeguards for their certification, and then we submit those payments to the Red Cross on their behalf. Items number 50 and 51 are for instructor payments for programs. Item number 52 is to amend an ordinance, which was originally with the Davie Resources Group, in order for them to subcontract with Urban Canopy, and this is for the the master plan for the Urban Canopy.
Okay.
And item number 53 is to apply for a grant for 2019. The date should say January 1, 2019 to December 31st, 2019, but that is to apply for a grant to reimburse us for various fitness and wellness programs at our community centers.
And I want to say thank you to all of your park staff, particularly Brittany and the Carpenters for Sunday. They did a phenomenal job, and they had us all set up and ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you. I will pass that message on to them. Thank you.
Really quickly, if I could just go back to the Urban Forest Master Plan.
Yes.
What is that? If I could just, any details you have on what that looks like, what the person will be doing, how we decide what.
So this is an ordinance that already has been approved. Davie Resources Group has been working with them for that public engagement and just going through the whole process of it. This is just allowing them to subcontract out a portion of the work.
Yeah. Gotcha. So add another subcontractor.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
Done, Counselor?
Yeah, those are my items, and they're all ready. So.
Thank you. Are you taking Counselor Ryan's?
Go ahead. Yep. Councilor Ryan has items 54 through 55.
Councilors, item 54, in 2015, the city and the county have entered into an agreement to provide postage mailing services for the city. And this will be the third of the fourth year request to continue with that agreement.
That's working out well.
Well, I've not received any negative feedback. The county picks up the mail, the way the process works, the county picks up the mail downstairs in the finance department. And we are required to pay the postage and any fees that the post office would assess to that mail. The advantage is we're using the county bulk mail. There's some employees, and this is an adjustment that was made years ago. The mail is picked up sometime around 10 a.m. in the morning, so sometimes that causes an issue if you have an item that needs to be mailed out at 3 in the afternoon. But again, you need to plan for that. So most of the mail that needs to go out for that day is out by 10 a.m. Now there are provisions if we need to get mail late afternoon. We have provisions downstairs that we can do that. So what are we
paying David, or yes. Commissioner? What are we paying the $30,000 for?
That's the county fee to handle all of our mail. They send an individual from the county mailroom here every day, and they pick up the mail that we have packaged for them and transport back to the Civic Center. They run it through their machines, and it's my understanding they transport to the post office. So that's their fee. That's the county fee, $30,200.
The county cut for?
Right, for doing this, yes.
Okay. So before we were doing it with the county, we had somebody that was picking up the mail and taking it to the post office?
No. This agreement has been in effect. This agreement has been in effect for years. It's the same agreement, same process.
Okay, but effectively the mail was picked up at City Hall, and there was somebody in finance that handled the management of that mail, and it was picked up here. Now we transport it to the county, and then it's picked up, and it does delay. If we have to mail out marriage licenses up, it does delay people getting their mail.
Yeah, if you put mail downstairs today, 2 o'clock, it won't go out till tomorrow. So if there's that expectation that it'll be next day, it will not.
So
they'll pick up the next day, but it won't be.
Can we ask them to change the time that they pick it up?
We can discuss that. Yeah.
Are we incapable of sending out our own mail? Why are we paying $30,000 for somebody else to do something that we can do?
Good question.
Good question.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
We can look into it further.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, if there are items that are critical, we have the capacity downstairs to get those in the mail by 5 o'clock.
But okay, so will you look into that? Because
Sure, I
our
will.
question is very valid. Why are we paying $30,000 for somebody else to pick up our mail?
Okay, sure, yes.
Okay, item 55. PeopleSoft.
This is a IMA we have at Onondaga County. As you know, we partnered with Onondaga County in the PeopleSoft implementation, and we share the resource over there at their data center. We have an IMA in the case that we need any help. We don't have the manpower here to do everything PeopleSoft related. They have more resources than we do. So when we need help, we pay the hourly rate for their employee or their consultant. So this is a yearly agreement, and the total spend on this for fiscal year 18 was, excuse me, just a little bit under $32,000. So we need the help. We have it. We don't need it. It costs us nothing. So we're asking for an extension of that agreement.
But it says total cost not to exceed. So what do you spend yearly? Do you know what the cost is?
Fiscal year 18, it was a little over $31,000.
So you never exceeded the $375?
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Boyle.
Thank you. I have items number 56 and 57, and they are ready unless anyone has any questions.
Counselor Allen.
Thank you. I have items 58 through 76.
This is the public hearing we have to hold.
Yep. So 58 is held. The public hearing will be on September 10th. 59.
It is held.
Good afternoon, councilors. My name is Yolanda Johnson, Construction Development Coordinator. And this is item number 59. John Elmer is requesting permission for a minor encroachment for an existing overhang that encroached 24 feet into the North Salina right-of-way at 70509 North Salina Street.
Is that feet or inches?
What do you say?
Is that 24 feet or inches?
Oh, I'm sorry, inches, excuse me. Okay.
It's just an awning?
Yes. Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. All right, and items 60 through 76.
Good afternoon, councilors. My name is Stephanie Pasquale, Commissioner of Neighborhood and Business Development.
Did you have a list printed out or no?
Our printer's broken. I will have a list for you guys. This is a little chopped off, but I'd be happy to answer any specific questions of any of the items.
Can
I
you
do
just-
have, oh, sorry.
Oh, can you tell us the ones that are currently occupied?
Sure. First, if I may, the first item on your agenda, number 60 for 115 Burdick, they recently paid, so I respectfully request to withdraw that item.
Okay, thank you.
That's what we like to
60.
61 is occupied rental. 62 is an occupied rental. 65 is occupied rental. 66 occupied rental. 67 occupied rental. 70 occupied rental. 71 occupied rental, and the rest are vacant structures. The last three items for this section on your agenda are vacant lots.
I have a question, if that's okay. Item number 61 I've been holding. Have you guys had any correspondence with the owners of that?
I don't believe so, but is Mary Margaret still here? Number
have not.
61, any correspondence of late? Okay. No.
Well, they had missed a payment a couple years ago and then paid their taxes and then missed a payment last year, so now they're considered.
They're 6,600 behind, so that's several payments. That's just in delinquent taxes. That doesn't include current taxes.
Right, right, but they were initially, that's not very much money, really, $6,600 for a house. As far as I could tell, they were current with their water and that they had only missed a payment 3 or 4 years ago, and then they were current, and then they missed a payment last year.
Yeah,
so.
they're behind on their water as well, but I mean, but, would you, do you have, if you have a phone, we don't have a phone number for these folks. If you have a phone number, that would be helpful, but we haven't been able to get into contact with them.
Yeah, I guess it just bothers me that someone could be, I mean, I know that it could be a problem, somebody could pay every other year and we'd never seize their house, but just to have someone miss a payment several years ago and then be current and then miss this year, have it be considered seizable, it seems.
So the one question that we discussed previously was when somebody if you have back taxes, I don't pay 2 years ago, I come in to make a payment today. So it seems like some people are actually paying their current taxes, but not paying the one that they owed 2 years ago. So is there a process for which people are encouraged or communicated that they should pay the oldest payment first?
Assessment Commissioner can answer that. Assessment Commissioner?
Because I thought this property, they hadn't paid, they paid,
14.
but they didn't pay everything. They paid in between. So although they had been paying since, it sounds like they haven't paid in 6. They have one that's owed from 4 years ago or something, which counts differently in this going to the land bank calculation.
Councilor, if I could just say, if a taxpayer comes downstairs with a coupon or mails in, that'll be what's processed. The cashiers will not review the account of the taxpayer. if they come in and they ask, an inquiry will be made and they will be advised. But keep in mind, they're getting letters over the years, so they should have received notification that they're missing some payments. So, you know, that's the process in terms of, you know, other than the letters, there's nothing. If you come in with a current year coupon, we'll take your money. And if you owe prior years, that's something we don't, the cashiers typically don't check on.
And this particular one, 118, is a rental, correct? So they're getting money from the rent,
Right.
I would assume, so it shouldn't be an excuse.
No,
Right.
but,
Yeah.
but do we know even if it was the same owner when, you know, I mean, this could have changed hands?
I'd be happy to do a more detailed analysis on this parcel and look at ownership over the last 5 years, if you'd like.
That would be great, because I'd like to either, you know, I don't want to keep holding it. I want to do something with it,
Okay.
but it just doesn't sit right with me. So, be good. I'll connect with you afterwards. Thank you.
So you still want to look
I'm
into
gonna hold
holding
it
this one?
right now. For now.
Okay, any other questions?
No, just to hold 71.
71? Okay. All right, thank you.
Session.
Go to executive.
Are we gonna do it today?
Oh,
He's not gonna be here.
Oh.
We don't even.
Huh? Yeah, we're going. Now, please.
Okay, so we are going to proceed to executive session. Thank you. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Thank